Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGameLLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we continue the top 100 of all time, specifically for the year 2021. Now let's go ahead and we're going to start with number 90. Number 90 is the game Tifatasum. Now this game has come to the United States under the name of Good Critters, but I really like the theme in the original. In this game, you play a bunch of politicians, nominating a president and trying to pocket money using your influence and negotiation with this president. He's going to put out some money every round and decide who gets it, and it's up to everybody else at the table, including the president, to vote on the money. Do they say that it's a fair distribution, or is this no good and we should kick this guy out and get another president? So it's up to the players to really decide the flow of the game. And in addition, you can also do some underhanded tactics instead of voting yes or no towards the payout. I really love the table talk that comes from this game. I also love the distribution of money and the action cards that you're going to use for the game. So this is my number 90, Tifatasum. Awesome negotiation game. My number 89 is Smartphone Inc. Now in Smartphone Inc., you are, well, go figure, a smartphone company owner, and your job is to sell as many phones as possible. I really like the action selection system in this game. You use two tablets and you stack them on top of each other, covering icons. And the more icons you cover, the more phones you produce, but the less other things you can do. It's really cool to program your actions beforehand and see how it plays out during the round. A lot of fun, really cool technology. This is Smartphone Inc., my number 89. Up next is my number 88, Viticulture, Essential Edition. I love this game in all forms of it. I really like the expansion, and in this game, you're going to be playing an owner of a vineyard. Your job is to create as much wine as possible and sell it around the world. So you're going to be fulfilling orders and contracts. Everybody wants a specific type of wine. Hey, you may not even sell a bunch of wine, and you could be making a living off of planting grapes or giving tours. There's a lot of cool variety in this game. There's a stack of cards, which is my favorite part, where you are going to be getting these cards with really strong abilities, but it's a worker placement game, so some of the spots allow you to actually play the cards. I really like the addition of the different sets of cards, so you can play with one that's more all around, you can play with one that's focused specifically on making wine, and it really changes the strategy in each different game. The Tuscany board is also really cool, as it splits the game up into 4 seasons, and it really helps with the flow of the game and passing and turn order and really everything. So I really enjoy Viticulture. That's my number 88. My number 87 is a game that I talk about a lot on this channel, and this is Catacombs 3rd edition. So Catacombs is the playmat version, is a dungeon crawler mixed with dexterity. If you want to throw a fireball, you flip the fireball. It's very straightforward. Cover is, well, if you're standing behind a pillar, nobody can hit you because that thing's in the way. I love how everything translates directly into this game, the massive variety in the enemies, and just the total blast this is with people of all ages. So that's my number 87, Catacombs 3rd edition. Moving to number 86 is another dexterity game, but this one is a huge grab bag of mechanisms all regarding these cool, funky shaped pieces. So in this game, you can get a wooden or a plastic version. You're going to be stacking all sorts of things, or maybe tearing down things, passing things. You're going to go essentially on a world tour, and in each location, you'll be doing something different. So every game you play is going to be a 3-series journey, and at each of these places, you'll have a challenge. Your job is to get the most fans points at each of these challenges, and whoever has the most at the end wins. I really love the different pieces themselves, and how each game really allows you to use them in interesting and fun ways. My favorite mode of play is, there is one where you have a sculpture in front of you, and your job is to not knock it down. Very straightforward, simple stuff. But every so often, every 3 cards I think you play, each card represents a piece, and you'll play the piece, and you will be stacking that on your sculpture, but then you'll move sculptures. So you'll be moving around the table. Now this is really interesting because you are trying not to knock down yourself, but you're also trying to set up the next person that's going to inherit your sculpture to knock their things down. So I really like that. It's a lot of fun, and there are ways to play where there's no sudden elimination, kind of like Jenga style, and there are game modes where everybody is in no matter what, and you're just trying to have the least amount of fallen pieces. So it caters to people of all skill levels. I really like this one. This is Junk Art, my 86. My 85, I don't have the box for because the box was horrendously huge for the game inside. It's my favorite trivia game, and this is Wits and Wagers. So Wits and Wagers, you can get any of the versions, honestly, but it takes the idea of betting and poker chips, and you're going to be using them to guess number-based trivia questions. So your trivia question might be something like, how tall is the tallest mountain in Colorado Springs? And that was a question, actually, one time. I had one of my students at the time. He nailed it. He knew exactly what it was. Really cool. So if you guess, you'll guess whatever you want. And the best part about this is you don't have to know it. You can write whatever you want. And then everybody will put their cards in the middle, reveal them, and you'll have an idea of what everybody thought about the answer. And your job is to bet on who you think is closest without going over. So it's really cool that even though you're not sure, you can bet on somebody else. You can pretend that you're sure and really go for it, or you can just be very blunt with your knowledge and, just do the best you can with what you got. You can still win even if you don't know the answer to the trivia, and that's huge when it comes to trivia games because a lot of the times it's either you know it or you don't. In this case, it's about playing the numbers and thinking about, okay, this might be just a smidge over, or maybe this one's a little bit lower. Really cool. My favorite mechanic of this is each trivia card actually has two options on it, and whoever's reading it gets to pick the question they want to do. And I think that's fun to give players choice, even as minor as that. It's just really neat, and the questions themselves are a lot of fun and really cool. And the fact it's all numbers really helps with getting guesses and ideas because it's something that's quantifiable. So I really like that as Wits and Wagers. Any addition is great. My number 84 is Bonfire. I'm going to grab it really quick, sorry. My number 84 is Bonfire. I have really enjoyed this game by Stefan Feld. It is a really point salad-y game where you're going to be opening these big portals to let these guardians travel through. The theme is really interesting. It's pretty tacked on, but it makes sense with the actions you're doing. You are using your little gnome dudes to travel around to get portals, to get bonfires, to open the bonfires and connect them with portals to let guardians through. It's really interesting how the mechanics work together, and it actually works when you play. I was quite surprised. I had heard a lot of negative things about how the theme doesn't really work or doesn't really help, but it makes sense in this world they've created. I know I'm not selling it very well here, but the mechanics of this game are really the solid part. You have special cards that you can get straight from the get-go. The resource collection system is really interesting. And my favorite thing about this game is the goals themselves. So each of these islands on the board have a goal tile on them, and your job is to go to those islands, pick up a tile, put it on your board, and you can finish it whenever you want, but you don't have to finish it. You might be using that goal tile to finish another goal tile, and the goal tiles represent all aspects of the game. So your goal tile could say, hey, get some guardians, or get all your portals filled, or, open up a couple gates. They're really interesting how they use all the parts of the mechanics to create goals. And it pushes you in different ways because you can look at all of the goals at the beginning of the game and kind of determine a path, and you have to pivot at an instant if another player kind of gets onto that path. So I think this game is really interesting. I love the objectives and how you get to pick the objectives, and this is just really solid. This one missed my 2020 best of list because I hadn't played it yet. I didn't play it until January, early January. This is one that came from Essen and didn't really get released till later. So it would definitely have been on its list, and it'll definitely be there for the retrospective for 2020. So this is great. Bonfire. Up next is number 83. This is Container. Container is a game about auctioning these gigantic crates. So actual containers. The game itself comes with these huge chunky pieces, and you're going to be moving them around the table, and it's just fun. You feel like the owner of this business as you steam around your big container ship, loading it up, and you'll finally get to that center island and auction them all off and get a lot of money. It's a really cool player-driven economy, and my favorite part of this game is the scoring. During the game, you're going to throw out whatever container you've got the most of. You kind of diluted your market, so you're not really getting any money from that. But you'll score for every container that's left. So it's really interesting. You're trying to get containers that are worth a lot of points to you, but you also want to get a lot of containers that probably aren't worth that much for you. So all of a sudden you have this weird dynamic of, I kind of want the containers that are bad for me, but if they're good for somebody else, they might push it to be more expensive for you. So you're kind of, it's really interesting to find where you need to bid correctly and what containers you're going to be able to get for cheap. So I really like this game, Container, fantastic auctioning game. Number 82 is Aeons End. This is the latest expansion in the Aeons End Outcasts. It's a deck building game with no shuffling, where you'll be taking a mage and fighting against a giant boss cooperatively. So you can play this with up to 4, I believe. And it's great. I mean, it's exactly what it sets out to be. You're going to be a mage, you're casting spells, you're fighting minions, and you're protecting your city from these giant monsters. My favorite part about this game is the variety of the monsters themselves. There are these huge hulking abominations with their own personalized cards. Some come with boards, some come with maps, some come with special tokens. It's really interesting how much they've been able to innovate in this game, and it's a great time. The game's initiative system is also awesome. You have a deck of cards that's going to shuffle in, and each character can go into those. It goes into the deck, and there are these really cool cards in higher player counts where they're split. So either one player, the first player or the second player, can take a turn, and you decide who gets to take the turn based on what's more advantageous. So I think that's really awesome how they were able to do that, and I think it's a great game. This is Aeon's End, and specifically Outcasts. Lastly, my number 81 is a game that's brand new to me. I got it this week, actually, and I am thrilled about it. I can only see this one climbing. I have had no negatives with it so far, and I just want to play more and more of it, and this is Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. I unfortunately went on the second wave shipping, so I got the expansion and the base game all at the same time. And man, I've been missing out. This game is awesome. So the theme really does it for me. You are set in a dark Arthurian legend, but you're just a normal guy. You're a normal person, and your job is to figure out what's going on, get protection for your village, and help with this giant mystery narrative that's going on around you while learning more about yourself. The combat in this game is really cool. You have this deck of cards for encounters in general that you'll be playing to try to create combos, and you have to really manage what's going on and think about what you're doing on the board. The movement on the board is straightforward. The adventure is really cool. This game completely edges it over games like Seventh Continent, where in that game you feel more like you're filing information. In this game, you are interacting with the pieces on the board, and you only have a very limited scope that you get to explore at a time. So I feel like you're a lot more attached to the locations themselves. There's none of the kind of like look closely or you'll miss it kind of guesswork. It's all based on your decisions, and you have real consequences of those decisions. There are clues, don't get me wrong, for what's going on, the stories, the best choices, but you have a clear path, a clear objective, and something that you're doing. And I think this is where this game shines, is the story and the objectives, and the whole campaign itself is fantastic. Now, I've only played a little bit of the first campaign. I'm about 6 or 7 chapters in right now, and I am having a blast. It's one of those games you kind of leave up on your table, and it's great with multiplayer or solo. I strongly recommend this one. This is Tainted Grail by Awakened Realms. So that's my 90 to 81. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you checking in. I can't wait to do the rest. So up next is going to be 80 through 71. Thank you so much for watching. Side Game Strong.